Welcome to Chasing Curiosity TV. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The news broke like a thunderclap, echoing across living rooms, offices, and factory floors nationwide. Within minutes, social media feeds exploded with speculation and disbelief. Supreme Court strikes down Trump-era tariffs. The headline scrolled relentlessly, capturing the attention of millions. The decision, a 6-3 ruling, instantly redrew the lines of presidential power, sending shockwaves through the political and economic landscape. Years of tariffs on imported steel, aluminum, and other goods gone in a moment. The machinery of global trade, once slowed by policy, now threatened to lurch forward unpredictably. In the Rust Belt, workers felt exposed, fearing for their jobs and futures. For many, the tariffs had been a shield against foreign competition. Union halls buzzed with anxious calls, factory floors filled with uncertainty. Conversations turned to rumors of layoffs and plant closures. Meanwhile, importers and business owners from ports to breweries breathed a sigh of relief, seeing hope for stable prices and supply chains. For them, the decision promised lower costs and renewed opportunity. In Washington, politicians quickly took sides, some hailing the decision as a victory for the Constitution, others decrying it as judicial overreach. The air was thick with statements and press releases. The debate over tariffs, far from ending, had simply shifted to a new battlefield. Protests erupted, and TV panels buzzed with heated arguments. The Supreme Court's decision was not an end, but the start of a new, uncertain chapter in American trade. Legal experts and economists scrambled to predict what might come next. The country was split. Some saw opportunity, others betrayal. Town halls filled with passionate voices, each side demanding to be heard. The only certainty, the story of American trade had entered a new era. The world watched as the United States adjusted to its new reality. The shockwaves would be felt in every corner of the nation, from bustling cities to quiet rural towns, touching families and businesses alike. The headlines faded, but the consequences were just beginning. The nation waited, uncertain, as the first effects began to ripple outward. America braced for what would come next, standing at the threshold of change, united only by the uncertainty of the future. Wall Street reacted instantly. Stock futures soared, as investors scrambled to reposition their portfolios in light of the breaking news. The biggest winners, at least at first, were companies reliant on imported metals, who now saw a path to cheaper materials and higher margins. Automakers, appliance manufacturers, and major retailers saw their shares jump, anticipating lower costs, improved supply chains, and the potential for higher profits in the months ahead. The US dollar swung wildly as traders recalibrated for a new trade landscape, with uncertainty fueling volatility across global markets. For families, the promise of lower prices on cars, appliances, and even groceries offered a glimmer of hope amid rising living costs and economic anxiety. But in America's steel towns, the mood was grim and uncertain. Workers who'd seen a revival under the tariffs now feared a flood of cheap imports, plant closures, and the return of job losses that had haunted their communities for decades. The sense of betrayal ran deep. This was about more than economics. It was about identity, pride, and the future of entire towns built on American industry. Politicians seized the moment. Some praised the ruling as pro-growth and a win for consumers and business, while others called it a gift to foreign competitors, warning of lost jobs and weakened national security. The debate over trade was reignited, with both sides vowing to fight for their vision of America's future, and passions running higher than ever. The Supreme Court's decision didn't settle the issue. It poured fuel on the fire, sparking protests, celebrations, and endless commentary. Trade, once again, was at the center of America's political storm, dividing communities and uniting others in common cause. The stakes were personal, the consequences real, touching every household, every business, and every worker across the country. For Main Street and Wall Street alike, the only certainty was change. Uncertainty loomed, but so did opportunity. The nation watched, waiting to see who would win the next round. As headlines flashed and opinions clashed in living rooms and online, the battle lines were drawn, on factory floors, in boardrooms, and in Congress, as leaders and workers alike prepared for what came next. The future of American trade was up for grabs, and the outcome would shape the nation for years to come. America's relationship with trade has always been complicated. Early on, tariffs protected fledgling industries and funded the government. After World War II, the US championed free trade, helping create the GATT, and later the WTO. Both parties embraced open markets, believing cheaper goods and global sales would benefit the nation. But the tide turned in the 21st century. China's entry into the WTO unleashed a wave of imports, devastating American manufacturing. Millions of factory jobs vanished, fueling resentment and skepticism about globalization. This discontent set the stage for a dramatic shift. Donald Trump campaigned on America First, promising to rip up trade deals and use tariffs to bring jobs back. His message resonated in communities hit hardest by foreign competition. The 2016 election became a referendum on globalization. The old consensus was shattered. A new era of trade politics had begun. America was ready for change, no matter the cost. The Trump administration's trade policy marked a dramatic break with decades of established precedent, signaling a new era in America's approach to global commerce. Rather than pursuing broad multilateral agreements, the administration wielded tariffs as a blunt and direct instrument, aiming to force change through economic pressure. By invoking Section 232 of a 1962 law, President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminum, justifying the move on the grounds of national security and the need to protect critical industries. This bold action bypassed Congress entirely, igniting fierce controversy and sparking heated debate among lawmakers, business leaders, and the public. Supporters of the tariffs argued that these measures were essential to protect vital American industries and preserve jobs, claiming they would make the nation stronger and more self-reliant. Critics, however, pointed out that most imports targeted by the tariffs came from long-standing allies rather than adversaries, warning that such policies risked provoking global retaliation and damaging key relationships. The administration's goal was to revive U.S. manufacturing, restore lost jobs, and gain leverage in tough trade negotiations with other countries. The strategy was one of shock and awe. America would now play by its own rules, unapologetically prioritizing its own interests above all else. As a result, many allies felt alienated, global supply chains were disrupted, and the established international order was shaken to its core. Supporters called the approach a necessary correction to years of unfair trade, while critics warned of the dangers in abandoning decades of international cooperation and stability. The America First approach fundamentally redefined U.S. trade policy, reshaping relationships both at home and abroad, and forcing the world to adapt to a new reality. The world took notice as the consequences of these policies rippled far beyond America's borders, affecting economies and markets worldwide. With tensions rising and disputes escalating, the stage was set for a dramatic showdown over the future of global trade. The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome would shape the global economy for years to come. The tariffs sparked a short-lived boom for U.S. steel and aluminum. Mills reopened, jobs returned, and supporters claimed victory. But the costs quickly spread. Automakers, builders, and manufacturers faced soaring prices. Many passed those costs to consumers, making everyday goods more expensive. Retaliation was swift. China, the EU, and others hit back with tariffs on American exports, especially farm products. Farmers suffered, prices fell, and the government stepped in with billions in aid. Uncertainty gripped businesses, stalling investment and hiring. Global supply chains were thrown into chaos. The tariffs didn't just raise prices, they injected instability into the economy. The trade war's winners were few, the losers, many. The policy's ripple effects were felt in every corner of the country. The lesson was clear. Trade wars are easy to start, but hard to win. America was left to pick up the pieces. The Supreme Court case wasn't about economics, it was about power. The question, did the president overstep constitutional bounds by imposing tariffs unilaterally? The court ruled that Section 232 gave the executive too much unchecked authority, violating the non-delegation doctrine. Congress, not the president, must regulate foreign commerce. The dissent warned this would tie the president's hands in crises, but the majority insisted on restoring balance. The ruling curtails presidential power over trade, shifting authority back to Capitol Hill. From now on, broad tariffs will need congressional approval. The decision reshapes Washington's balance of power for years to come. The tariff debate exposed a deep national divide. Protectionists, manufacturers, unions, and America First politicians argued tariffs were vital for fairness and security. They saw foreign practices as cheating and believed tariffs protected jobs and national strength. Free trade advocates, businesses, economists, and many politicians countered that tariffs are a tax on Americans, raising prices and hurting the economy. They championed open markets, innovation, and global cooperation. Both sides acknowledged trade's winners and losers, but disagreed on the solution. The debate was about more than economics. It was about America's identity and future. The argument raged on, shaping policy and politics alike. The Supreme Court's decision has shifted trade power from the White House to Congress. Major trade moves now require legislation, not executive orders. Congress faces a policy vacuum. Tariffs are gone, but the underlying issues remain. Some lawmakers will push to restore protections, others will fight for free trade and new agreements. The result? A fierce battle over America's economic strategy. Compromise will be essential, but hard to achieve in a polarized Congress. The future of trade will be shaped by coalition building, not unilateral action. Gridlock or consensus, either could define the next chapter. The Oval Office no longer calls the shots alone. The fate of American trade now rests with 535 members of Congress. America stands at a crossroads after the Supreme Court's decision. The risks job losses in vulnerable industries, deeper political divides, and possible policy paralysis. The opportunities, lower costs, renewed alliances, and a smarter approach to global trade. The challenge is to balance protection for workers with engagement in the global economy. Leaders must move beyond slogans, investing in competitiveness and a stronger safety net. The future depends on forging a new consensus, one that serves both workers and consumers. The Supreme Court didn't solve the trade dilemma, it changed where the debate happens. Now, it's up to Congress and the American people to chart the path forward. The world is watching,